But when you do lead with your heart and put people first, it is a lot of pressure. So do you
Yes,
find
absolutely.
right. So you find that is that a similar theme that you hear with your clients that you work with coaching, that it is they're their harshest critic, maybe?
Oh, yes. I think one of the elements of identifying as an introvert is that you are more internally focused. There's a lot going on in your brain, right? And a lot of what you said rings so true. We're very focused on how other people might react or respond, and keeping other people happy and calm. A lot of uh, people who feel like they are introverts are very focused on what I call the 3 Ps. You've already hit on them, I think: perfectionism, people pleasing, and procrastination.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to This Introvert's Heart with Selena. Today I'm speaking with Lisa Stryker. Lisa is a longtime professional communicator, certified coach, trainer, and speaker, and the founder of Stryker Coaching and Communications. She's offering one-on-one coaching for empathetic leaders who are ready to claim their influence. So, welcome, Lisa. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Well,
Fellow
we're so
introvert reporting.
yes, we're happy to have you here. I love to talk to introverts who do a wide variety of jobs, just to kind of dispel some of the myths that people have
Mhm.
around introverts. So for you, your job is just amazing. So first, you do consider yourself an introvert? So how would you say it has affected your life positively or negatively, being an introvert?
Great question. And you said you like to talk to people from a variety of jobs who consider themselves introverts, and people often are surprised to hear that I describe myself as an introvert, because it doesn't mean I'm not social, and it doesn't mean I don't speak on stage or do things that other people might think are scary,
Right.
because that's not what being an introvert it really is. For me,
Exactly.
it simply means that I just need time away to myself. On the positive side, you said, what are the positives and negatives in my life? On the positive side, it has made me extremely observant. I'm a great listener. I'm a deep thinker. I'm a problem solver. Like, this brain sometimes really even amazes me in the way it can figure things out, because I can really see things that other people maybe might miss because of being more of an introvert and being more of observant. I like to sit back and observe before I respond. And that serves me so well in my work as a coach, like sharpening. I didn't know it at the time, but over the years, sharpening those skills was preparing me to really be an exceptional coach, because that's a big part of coaching. Probably the biggest, most valuable element of being a coach is being able to really listen deeply and with great curiosity. What would I say are kind of the downsides? I think that this is exactly how I got into this work, is because you can get into this place of overthinking. And that's really a focus, a pillar of the work that I do with my clients. When you spend so much time thinking and not a lot of time doing things, and you kind of start feeling stuck. And I think that introverts in general are more susceptible to some of the societal and family conditioning that keeps us small. So that's another element of this that I would say has been a negative, but I really, really have learned to capitalize on the positives.
That's awesome. I was just writing down what you were saying because it just hit me so much. I have a a coach that I learned about my introvertedness. I am an INFJ, personality type
Me
from the
too.
Myers-Briggs. I knew you
Oh,
were
wow.
because that's
Uh-huh.
why we connected so quickly. It's like, and they're very rare. But since I've
Mhm.
started learning about them and branching out into my new business and the coaching and the speaking and the podcasting, it's like I'm finding all the INFJs. They're just coming to me. It's amazing. So that's why we click so fast. So that makes
Mm.
sense. But INFJs, her name is Winses, and she is very popular on YouTube. I highly recommend everybody go follow her if you're an INFJ or if you're curious. But she talks about, how we can get stuck in the NITI loop of, we overthink, we're perfectionists, we procrastinate because we don't want to make a mistake or do something wrong, and so we get into this thing, like you were saying, the overthinking, and we end up with, when we're trying to do something, but we've done a lot in our head, but there's nothing tangible for other people to see. And so that, when you said that, that's where I have actually been today, um, trying to move on with this podcast stuff. And I have committed my whole day to trying to post stuff and do stuff to get that tangible stuff out there.
Yeah.
Overthinking, thinking, the procrastination, but then the actual doing. How do you help them get to the doing?
It's such a great question. It's definitely a process. One of the things that I like to really lean on is this idea of learning about how our brains work. And since my clients tend to be like me, kind of analytical and logical, it really appeals to them to learn a little bit about the defaults of our brains. So I teach them some of those things, like, for example, the negativity bias that we all have, the primitive drive to keep us the same in our primitive minds view. Staying the same is safe. So just simply teaching them some of those things really helps them elevate their confidence and level of awareness on what's happening for them, and stop seeing it. This is probably the biggest hurdle. Stop seeing it as a defect or a problem that they have a tendency to overthink, and see it more as a function of how our brains work and habitual thinking. This is the way they've conditioned themselves, the way they've been conditioned. So we talk a lot about that. And another key element is how we build confidence, the structure, the actual skill of developing confidence. Most people don't look at it that way. They think of it as either you're born with it or you're not. Not true. The way that you really develop confidence is by having the courage to take action towards doing new things. So courage comes first. So we work a lot on that, developing their courage. And what comes behind that is understanding why. Why do you want to take action? Where is the motivation coming from? It's not about having willpower. Willpower doesn't work. It's not sustainable. It's about understanding why and where you want to go, and having a clear vision, and keep walking toward that vision with courage and understanding. And then the third big element of that is self-compassion, and understanding that it's going to feel hard, it's going to feel scary, you're going to fall down. You can learn to just get back up. And what I really try to instill in my clients is this understanding that, because you touched on perfectionism, probably 100% of my clients are perfectionists because we attract people like us. And I definitely
Right.
have been in the habit of perfectionating, if that's a verb. And I really help them start to see themselves with greater compassion, which really is just having grace for your humanness. And you're going to make mistakes, and that's part of being human. And it's okay, letting
Mm-hmm.
that be okay. So a big part of that is self-talk, and really getting aware of how you talk to yourself, and redirecting that in a more productive
Right.
way.
I love that because I talked to you before and I mentioned that this year was the year I was turning 50 in June. And so I said I was going to listen to God, not just hear him. I was going to listen to him tell me I was going to say yes, how you said about coming from a negative bias. I think that's just our default as human beings now, where we come from a place of
Mhm.
no and negative or why we can't do something. So I spent this year changing that and saying, yes, how can I make that happen instead of just the no? And so I like the idea that, and I think that's part of the quality, especially of an INFJ, but I think introverts in general, a lot of us are more concerned with the other person, our fellow man. And that is why I think we can be so hard on ourselves, because we want to be there for people. We care about people. It's part of our perfectionism because we want to make it nice or right, or, we don't
Yes.
want to hurt anybody. That's why I say to people, I don't want to hurt anybody in what I'm trying to do. And so I think that our humanness, our care for our fellow man is what keeps us stuck. Um, so when you work with, I think it's like a lot of pressure that we feel
Mhm.
to care for and take care of everyone. And that may be just a woman thing or a person thing, just depending on your personality type. But when you do lead with your heart and put people first, it is a lot of pressure. So do you
Yes,
find,
absolutely.
right? So you find that is that a similar theme that you hear with your clients that you work with coaching, that it is they're their harshest critic,
Oh,
maybe?
yes. I think one of the elements of identifying as an introvert is that you are more internally focused. There's a lot going on in your brain, right? And a lot of what you said rings so true. We're very focused on how other people might react or respond, and keeping other people happy and calm. A lot of uh, people who feel like they are introverts are very focused on what I call the three P's. You've already hit on them, I think: perfectionism, people pleasing, and procrastination. And all three of those are very deeply rooted in focus, external focus, looking for external validation, external approval, living and dying on compliments and criticism. So, yes, I absolutely work with my clients on all of those things. And one foundational thing that we work on together that helps tackle all three at the core is setting your own standards, which is something they're not used to. They're very used to focusing on, well, what does my boss think I should do? What will my kids think? What will my spouse think? And running them through some exercises to get them more reacquainted with who they are, what's important to them, their value system, their priorities, what they creating a vision for themselves, and then setting some standards. And that could be big picture standards, like where do you want to be in 20 years? Or it could be very focused, like how do you want to manage your work day to day so that you're not running yourself into the ground. Any of those scenarios calls for you learning to have a very clear point of view and setting your own standards and starting there before you're considering what everyone else might think.
I love that, because part of what I'm doing too is for the person who, wakes up one day, 50, this is not the life I pictured, or, who am I? Your kids are leaving, empty nesters, and,
Mhm.
now you have to rediscover yourself if you've turned all your time and attention to them and things. So we have a very good, especially INFJs, we have a ability to kind of like hollow ourselves out to let it be whoever that other person, whatever they need. Like if no one else is going to be the leader, then I can be the leader. But if someone else needs to be the leader, I can sit back and let them do that. So, like you said, after a while, though, it's like, who am I, Selena? What music do I like? What do I like to eat? Because, and I think when you decide at that point that you are going to have an opinion, that you do have thoughts, there are two things that happen. One, it's a culture shock for the people in your life. They're like, who is this person now with all these opinions? And, she
For
wants her
sure.
way. Right. And so I think that's a learning curve that we also have to kind of give the
Mhm.
other people in our life some grace for, because we're not really the person that they signed up for. We have changed it on them. And so I try to remember that, when I'm talking
Mhm.
to my partner and he's like, who is this person? And I'm like, oh yeah, well, I do have opinions. And I'm
Surprise.
going to start sharing.
You bring up
I'm
such a
going to
good
tell them.
point, Selena. That's where the real work begins, when after you do all this thinking and planning and visioning and deciding, then you need to take action. And that's where having a coach to support you can really make the difference, because it gets very uncomfortable. To your point, people don't always love it. They may not respond favorably. And I coach them through the idea of having compassion for themselves and for the other person, because to your point, you've kind of changed the game on them, and it may take
Right.
some time for them to adjust. And that's where people often back away. They start to set boundaries or start to assert themselves more, and then it gets very uncomfortable and they shrink back into their shell. So without support, that's the tendency. With support and with me there to remind them, they're more likely to stay consistent and break through that initial discomfort and fear. And, I have a long communications background, so I call on that too. Learning to communicate yourself well is essential. Being clear, like Brene Brown says, clear is kind. Being really clear on what you want and need, being very clear on setting your boundaries. That is all so helpful. And then learning how to communicate through conflict, because it's bound to come up.
Hmm. Because yeah, that was my second point. Is it's not selfish to for an introvert or someone who puts others before you. Generally, you think that now you're being selfish and now you're being just like everybody. No, you have to, like you said, set boundaries and just be like, this doesn't work for me. We could try something else, but for me, I don't want to do this. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that having a coach, especially when you are just starting on this journey, is wonderful, because there are times, if I wasn't an INFJ, there are times when I would have reverted back to, okay, whatever you want. What it's just easier that way. And I
It
used to
feels
always say
easier.
this. It feels easier.
It's not
And
easier in the
it's
long
not
term, though.
easy. It's not. And I said it's hard to not to be a people pleaser when you know what pleases the people, right? I know it's going to make you happy, right? And it's just easy, but
Mm,
it's a gift that we have that I don't think we always need to use. And I think that that is very wonderful that you're teaching people that sometimes it gets to be about us introverts. It gets to be about us sometimes.
yeah. I mean, who hasn't heard the saying, you have to fill your own cup, right? I heard recently, fill your cup to overflowing and pour from the saucer. And I love
Love
that
it.
visual. And
I
how can
love
that be selfish? Because think about it, if you run yourself into the ground, eventually you're not going to be able to give at all. So, really, if you want to think about, well, how selfish is that, right? The other thing that really resonates with people is when I talk about how people pleasing is actually manipulative and deceptive, because you're not really being genuine and authentic at all. And usually they're horrified at first to recognize that. I remember for myself first hearing that, but I didn't want to be that. And it motivated
Right.
me to figure it out. I want to be authentic and genuine. I want people to really know the real me. And yes, that can feel scary, but it's so liberating.
And I say the thing about the pouring from the empty cup all the time, because if your thing is, I like to get up and take a walk first thing in the morning, and that makes me, then go
Mhm.
do that, because then when they come for you and they need you, because
Right.
they
You've
will,
got the
you
energy.
you've got the
Yeah.
energy. So that's why it's not selfish, and that's why it's
Mhm.
vital. It's and so very, very important to me. I love that so much. There was just something else that you had spoke about that. I was like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. Oh, for the manipulation
Mm,
of knowing it. And that's where I was with it recently. I was like, am I being manipulative? But here's something to save you too. Because I really thought about this. And I was like, no, what happens is say I think about a friend and I'm like, oh, she would really love this, right?
mhm,
And then I think which is human nature, then you have the thought, oh, and then she's going to be happy and she's going to love me more. But I really made myself think about it. And I have the initial thought about doing the nice thing for the person first. But then I immediately think about the rest because I think that's how our minds work. But I do have
mhm,
the thought of just being kind first. It's just because we have the wherewithal to realize what that all encapsulates where other people don't see it, maybe. But I don't think it always comes from manipulation. I do have the
mm-mm.
kind thought first, but I do know that, oh, they'll like it then and then and then and then, right? But
Yeah,
if it
so
comes
you
from
you
kindness, right?
absolutely. Well, one of
Right.
the things I love we tend to think in all or nothing. It's either,
Mm-hmm.
you're a people pleaser and you're just trying to manipulate people, or you never do nice things. It's just not like that.
Right.
Like,
No.
let's face it, we're all people pleasers unless you're a total sociopath, right? You like to
Right.
make people happy, and that's a thing. And I'm so glad that that's how the world works. You hit on such an important point, though. If you buy someone a gift and you let go of the outcome, you're just simply doing it to be kind and release the rest. That's not really like a dysfunctional form of people pleasing. That's just being kind. The way
Right.
I think about it, when it goes to the extreme is when you're trying to create a feeling in someone else or trying to prevent them from feeling, and you're doing things just with that in mind. That's when it kind of veers over the line. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really feel good. And it creates so
Mm-hmm.
many bad feelings of resentment and all kinds of things. And that's where burnout happens too.
Mm-hmm. I have friends who I know have bought love and affection. That's a different thing too. If you're
Yeah.
doing it to buy the love, to buy the attention,
Hmm.
yeah, that's more. It's less people pleasing, more you not loving yourself enough. I
Mm.
think kind of selling yourself short that no one would love you unless you do things for them. And I guess in a way
Yeah. And what
that
kind of
can
love is that anyway?
right. That's not true love. If it's just based on something, it's a
Mm.
reciprocity relationship. That's not going to work, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
tell me more about your coaching business and a little bit about where you came from before you were coaching. And I know we spoke before, and you were saying that your job was not exactly what people would think an introvert would be doing. Your prior job.
Yeah. I'm almost as surprised as they are where I wound up, but yeah, it was a journey. So for most of my career, I've been in communications, all kinds of communications. Started out as a writer, which really falls in line with the introvert thing. I was always a big reader, loved to write, but one thing led to another, and I got into marketing and PR, and I just realized that I had a talent for communication. And I think that's where being that observer, listener, introvert person comes in handy, because you really do understand how people will respond, and so you can communicate effectively. So from a business standpoint, I remember one of my most cherished mentors, she said, you're the most natural communicator I've worked with ever. And that meant a lot to me, and I've reflected on that over the years, and I think I come by it very naturally, very honestly, because
Mhm.
I'm genuinely interested in other people. So I went through years and years of moving up in the ranks in corporate communications, and I kind of hit a wall. I wanted to be in management so much. I just love the idea of helping people, supporting people, building a team, supporting a team, guiding them to success, all of that. And what I didn't realize was that I needed to clean up all the stuff we were talking about today. So, you can't be a people pleaser and a people leader.
Mm.
And it really created some problems for me. I had the best of intentions, but I had two things that really were working against me. One was that lack of self-awareness, lack of understanding of how some of my tendencies were not effective leadership. And I got lined up with a manager who really wasn't interested in mentoring me. He just was kind of very critical, very standoffish, and honestly I think just wanted me gone, thought of me as more of a hindrance. I was also coming into my more assertive era of life, so I was challenging him on some of these things and he just wasn't having any of it. So instead of seeing that as a growth opportunity, I allowed it to really crush my confidence. And that was a big turning point for me. And when I did some therapy because I had to clean up some stuff in my past. And then at a certain point, I thought, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I want to do things differently. And that's when I found coaching. And I had such an amazing experience with coaching that it made me want to be a coach. And I went on, had great other career opportunities. And what I found was that my favorite part about being a manager was helping my team develop themselves. So I got certified. I'm now double certified, and I went full time about 2 years ago and just devoted myself to this work.
That's amazing. So I know you find it much more rewarding, I'm sure. How many do you do group sessions, one-on-one sessions? How do you do manage your coaching business?
I do all one-on-one work right now. I do have it in my plan to move to group work at some point. But right now, I love the deep dive work of working one-on-one with clients. I work with them on a 6-month basis, and we set up a customized plan. The reason why I decided to kind of focus on that idea of helping empathetic achievers claim their influence is because I think the world really needs more of us out there. People who
We
are
do.
very focused on supporting people as full formed human beings, right? And not just robots, and getting into positions of leadership where they can really make a difference out there.
I love that because I think the greatest thing I know for INFJs, you can tell me if you relate to this or not. There are a lot of things, skill sets that we have, and one of them are we can get past, feeling weird or what people think about us kind of easily. And I think that that's why we can step out and do stuff that doesn't even seem like
Mm,
anything that we would want to do, and not really get trapped in. I like being different. When I was younger, of course, why am I so different? Why is my name so weird? Why am I not like everybody else? But as you get older, um, I hope most people gain confidence and like the idea that you're not like everybody else. And I think that is a strength, like you said, that we need to start tapping into now so that we're all not just sheep following everything that TV or social media or whatever tells us to be or how we're supposed to act. And that's why I think my other company's name is Quiet Voices Unleashed, and that's why I think I want to push that out some even more about, hey, people need to the quiet ones. People need to hear all this stuff that we've had going
mhm.
on in our head for a while, as opposed to the people that immediately think and spit it out and think, oh yeah, thank you for that information that I should take and just do what you say. So I love anybody that is empowering the quiet or the ones who think that their voice or their opinion is not valuable.
Mm,
Yes, it is. We need to
yes.
hear more of that from the people who have just been observing.
Yes, and we're deep thinkers. We've got great solution finding minds, and we love to weave in the human element. So I just think it's time. It's our time in this world to really make a difference, and I want to do everything I can to help people find their influence and have an influence so that they can support that. It's the next wave of human evolution. I really believe that.
I truly do, because in this new AI world, the only thing that you're going to ever know that is real or true is if you're speaking to someone,
Mm.
and actually live, like this,
Yeah.
because so much can be faked now.
Could be fake voice. That's right. I've heard they can just sample your voice and mimic it now. That's kind of scary.
They do. It's so scary. Oh my God. So, tell us what else would you like to share with us? Anything else about you and what you
Mm.
do?
Well, I would love people to know that I do have spots available for coaching. So if any of this resonates, I would love to talk to them. I do a free consultation and we talk through everything they're being challenged with, and I lay out a customized plan. I think that the most important thing I would love your listeners to take away from this conversation is that if they are feeling like they don't have the confidence, the self assurance, they're second guessing themselves, they're overthinking things, not enjoying their downtime because they're in their heads ruminating and rehashing conversations, that all of that can be overcome. It doesn't have to be that way. It A lot of what we experience is really just thought habits, just habitual ways of being, and I can show them how to break those habits and develop new, more productive, fulfilling, satisfying ways of managing themselves that will set them free. And that's just my mission. So that's my message. I want people to know that they can change the way they think and make it much more effective. Like, use that beautiful brain of theirs to
Right.
solve problems in the world and take action, take bold action. It is possible for them too.
I think that when people work with coaches, what they find is that you'll start to learn a lot of your fears and insecurities are things that people have put on you, that are their fears and insecurities, and
Yes.
they that they have
Yes.
transposed to you, and like, oh, you can't do that, because they're fearful. And so once you start thinking, is that my thought or is that their thought? That's what's so
That's so
wonderful
good.
about coaches. That's what's so
Mhm.
wonderful about coaches. They can tap you into
Mhm.
what's really you and what may be residuals from
Yes.
life.
Yes, yes, so many obsolete beliefs and separating stories from fact. Like, we walk around thinking our stories are actual fact, and they are not. They can be rewritten to serve you and serve your vision for yourself. I just love that. Thank you for pointing that out.
I
For
love
sure.
that.
If anybody's interested, they can I'd love to grant access for free to one of my master classes. I offer a confidence class. It's the keys to unstoppable confidence. And they can find that at lisastrykercoach.com/confidence. That's Stryker with a Y. So go out there and grab that. It's a foundational teaching of mine.
Wonderful. And are you on social media or anything?
I am. I'm very active on LinkedIn and Instagram. You can just look for Lisa Stryker on LinkedIn, and also Lisa _Stryker on Instagram. I believe you have the links for the show
Right.
notes.
Right.
And I'm
I'll
also
put
on
all the
Facebook.
links
Look
in
me up.
there. Great. Well, this has been wonderful. Like I said, I'll have all the links to Lisa in the show notes. You can contact her, reach out if you are an introvert and you're even thinking about trying to do something new for yourself. Coaching is a great place to start. And I think Lisa will be a great advocate for you and a great source of inspiration and information. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us today,
It was
Lisa.
my
I
pleasure.
really appreciate it. This has
Thank
been
you for having me
wonderful.
here.
Absolutely.